The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know it. That's why they're talking to us. They wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback.
Oil prices are climbing right now as President Trump's pause on energy infrastructure strikes is less than 2 days from expiring, and investors sift through conflicting messages on peace talks with Iran. Welcome back to the second hour of the Big Money Show. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my exquisite co-host, and with us for this hour, Fox Business contributor Jonathan Hoenig. The president, writing on Truth Social, that Iran is privately begging for a deal and trying not to act desperate publicly, adding they better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there's no turning back. The U.S., well, military keeps striking Tehran's missile plants near the Strait of Hormuz, saying most of them are damaged or destroyed. But Iran is threatening to disrupt the markets even further, drafting a law to introduce tolls for transit through that strait and floating a closure of key choke points of global trade in the Red Sea. But the White House says Americans have nothing to worry about.
For 50 years of safety that we are going to have on the other side of this. And I believe energy prices will be lower, inflation will be lower before we had the appearance of security, which is not real security. Now, the American people and the world will have absolute security.
So that's Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and he makes a lot of sense when he talks about the bigger picture here, Jonathan. But this is a market that keeps responding to what headline it's getting daily, what soundbite is coming out of a cabinet meeting, how many more days we have until a pause expires. And so the market is very volatile as a result of that. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how much longer stocks, oil, the American people can withstand this, understanding there's a greater good here, but duration has been central since the start.
Well, look, I mean, the market's going to be volatile. Both the stock and commodity markets are going to be volatile. What's amazing is how much our own military dominates the Middle East. The U.S. and Israel are truly unstoppable in the Middle East. That's true, but this war is not yet over if Iran is still firing missiles, if they're still threatening trade and threatening to block trade. So, the whole purpose of the war is to make a threat non-threatening. And that's my fear, is the war is going to drag on because talks with Iran do nothing but embolden Iran. I think we should be looking for regime change, total elimination of the enemy. The president seems to be softening, and I think that essentially is going to elongate the conflict.
So I agree with you on many aspects of what you said, but when I think about that and what it means to me then we've got to hit them harder militarily, Brian. You make the point they keep dragging this out because they know that we're watching yields, and they know we're watching oil and gas prices, and that we're watching our stock market off its record highs, and they understand how important that is. So dragging it out is in their interest. Then I would say you have to hit them harder to get to that route. Take their ammunition away.
And I don't think we're softening up on hitting them hard. We're having these negotiations. We are still hitting them very hard, taking out missile production, taking out drone production, et cetera. So that needs to happen. Iran, I think about this. Iran might think at this point their greatest leverage is actually not the Strait of Hormuz. It is the will of the people behind the governments, i.e. our government especially, that are going after them right now. I actually think Iran believes its biggest lever is wear out the people. Okay, make them think this is going to go on forever. I don't see Trump softening. I know what you're saying. I don't see him softening. What I see him looking for is an exit point that is in America's interest, even if it doesn't accomplish our highest hopes. Okay, I think the highest hope is the Iranian regime is gone. But I don't think that's his measuring stick. I think his measuring stick is, our American interests secure? Have we degraded Iran enough to say they are not a threat to us in the foreseeable future? And if the answer to that is yes, he's willing to deal with somebody who was part of the old thing. I think that's why he made a big deal about the president. I don't know if the ships were that big of a deal going through, but there was somebody on the other side who was signaling to him, we want a deal. And he's assessing that person and saying, I'm okay dealing with that person because we've accomplished militarily what we set out to do.
But have we, if they still have ammunition? I wasn't suggesting that he's softening, but I am questioning, because I think it's 2 weeks ago that the headlines came out about how successful the military operation was with respect to the ballistic missiles and taking out drone capacity. But they've obviously still got some left. They've got firepower there. And so I'm just wondering, I don't think we're softening, but I'm wondering why we can't get to the core of it.
And you still don't have enough freedom in the country for the counter-protesters to get out in the streets to ultimately to overthrow the regime. I mean, we need the mullahs to fear the United States. We need the regime to fear the U.S. Right now, at least on social media, they're mocking us. They're mocking us with memes and fake global or fake videos where, you know, they take out the Statue of Liberty, etc. So, you know, the war isn't over unless the enemy surrenders. Thus far, the mullahs, despite the fact it's been degraded, they're not yet surrendered to the U.S. and Israel.
If you listen to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in the cabinet meeting, though, that he talks his mission and the mission of our military, and that is resolution through decimation. I raised the issue with one of the guests on Bottom Line yesterday. Is it going to be resolution through negotiation or resolution through decimation? And we're not a nation that's going to make that choice at this point, that it's a two-track approach for now. But at the same time, the headline crossed yesterday afternoon that most of Iran's missile plants have been damaged or destroyed by the United States. And resolution through negotiation, that's President Trump's strong suit. But we have the best military in the world. At the same time, and you have focused on Venezuela, now was the time to do it because of our energy security, of our prosperity. We're a net exporter of all fossil fuels combined, and because of what had happened in Venezuela. And at that cabinet meeting today, that Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, talking about the Venezuelan oil production, that Venezuela is already near a 50% increase in oil production in just 3 months. So they're getting near 1.1, 1.2 million barrels of production per day that's flowing out of Venezuela, which is, as predicted by Wright and the Secretary of Energy and Burgum, is on track for what they had said all along. But these things go hand in hand, and I'm surprised, well, one, that oil is not responding to that comment out of Burgum. But the fact that crude oil has not been at $120 a barrel and climbing, that even heading toward the weekend and uncertainty, oil is still, even Brent is not anywhere near where it was at the beginning of this conflict.
I mean, the irony is the biggest component in most states of the cost of a gallon of gas isn't crude oil. It's those taxes. It's taxes, exactly.
That was brought up at this cabinet meeting with the president lift the federal tax. He kind of punted in the part that I heard him talk about that to the states, and he brought up Gavin Newsom, Taylor, saying you're responsible for your state's high gas price.
Yeah, Unleash Prosperity has a great note out this morning saying that California pays the most in gas taxes for the worst roads out there. Is it, I'll have to check my math on this, like the extra $1 for California, that's the tax. So it's very interesting that that's not the price of oil. That's just because they want to tax people to not drive because they have weird green energy goals. Brian?
Yes, disagree with me. I've been waiting for this for like 2 minutes.
Okay, Dagan, I think I've got Dagan on my side on this one.
I don't care. I'll go 2 on 1.
Is anyone worried that 42, okay, so we have a new Fox poll that was out. 42% support the current U.S. military action against Iran. 58% oppose it, including 4 in 10 who strongly oppose it. Support is also tempered by doubts about the long-term outcome. More voters, 44% think it'll make the U.S. less safe rather than 33% who think it's safer. Now, polls this, polls that, sentiment shifts, comes and goes. I like that. But when you talk about the will of the people, that's where it's hard for me, because look, is it painful right now as we're looking at, I talked about fertilizer prices, gas prices, what are going to maybe be higher grocery prices down the line if higher crop prices feed through to the grocery store. In the next 6 months, totally, that is painful. And as Americans, we, like it or not, tend to be a little bit more short-sighted and immediate, instant gratification. So I think that is hard to reconcile with, I think, very smart and correct comments from Scott Bessent and the president saying, but 6 months from now, the world will be a much safer place. I like that. I think the pain point is getting the 42%, and that's a low number, to stick with them a couple more weeks or a couple more months, whatever that may be.
So here, a quick response on that.
Yeah.
One, you won't be surprised to know in that number, tons of Republicans support what's happening.
90% of MAGA voters. 90% of MAGA.
That's what I was going to see. I think Dagan's more on my side on this.
No.
Okay.
Tug of war.
Democrats don't want to do it. Independents are lined up against the war. I will give you that.
Sure.
That's the problem. But let me just throw this out there. I think for somebody practicing statesmanship, there are times when you reflect public opinion, and there are times when you make a choice to lead public opinion.
Sure.
This is a moment where I think the president, whether he's thinking in these terms or not, has made a choice to try to lead public opinion. Now that's on him. Like, he has to make the case to a public that may stand against him. But it's not the first time in history that a leader has had to say, they pay me to see a little further and to have wisdom and to do the right thing. And this is a moment where I'm going to do that, and I'm going to try to bring people along.
Sure.
And if you can do it, it's a great success. And if you can't, that often is the end of your political movement. But he's made that choice, I think, in this situation.
I definitely think he has, for sure. Meantime, we're